Which door do I leave from?
Check, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he...
At Harvard, we don't end our sentences with prepositions.
Well, in that case, which door do I leave from?
Asshole.
What democratic eloquence.
You asked the question, sir. Let me answer it. The genius of the Constitution is that it can always be changed. The genius of the Constitution is that it makes no permanent rule other than its faith in the wisdom of ordinary people to govern themselves.
Faith in the wisdom of the people is exactly what makes the Constitution incomplete.
Good morning, good afternoon.
And crude.
No, sir. Our founding parents were pompous, middle-aged white farmers, but they were also great men because they knew one thing that all great men should know, that they didn't know everything. They knew they were going to make mistakes, but they made sure to leave a way to correct them. They didn't think of themselves as leaders. They wanted a government of citizens, not royalty. A government of listeners, not lecturers. A government that could change, not stand still. The president isn't an elected king, no matter how many bombs he can drop.
It's not Cousin Vinny.
Because the crude Constitution doesn't trust him. He's a servant of the people. He's a bum, okay, Mr. Pitcairn? He's just a bum. And the only bliss that he's searching for is freedom and justice.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So the new live show times are 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time for about at least an hour. So sometimes I go up to 2 hours, but that's the new times. I'm thinking about going 7 p.m. Eastern Time in the evenings instead of 9. Let me know in the comments. Does that seem to be better, 7 p.m. Eastern Time or 9 p.m.? I'm going back and forth between those two times. 1 p.m. Eastern for sure. Seems like a very good time that'll work on a regular basis, but I don't know about the 7 or 9 p.m. time. So let me know in the comments if you want to watch these lives and join. I take a lot of guests. Usually we talk a lot about geopolitics, but we most talk about solving problems of corruption within the U.S. government and making sure that we can restore law and order and the representation back to the people. So if you're new to this channel, please follow in the corner and follow my videos where we talk a lot about what is the ultimate way to solve every problem that we have in the United States. And I truly mean that, like legitimately, not like to perfection. There's no such thing as perfect government, but we talk about the 28th Amendment, which I'll bring up on the screen quickly, before we get into Greenland and Venezuela and all the imperialistic bullshit that we hear that's going on from within the Trump administration and Stephen Miller. You just can't make this up. It's really disgusting that we're going into a transactional imperialistic world, or at least the Trump administration is trying to take the United States in that direction. We should all be appalled and scared, really, really scared that there are various foreign influences that have so much influence on the Trump administration. And you think this is about nationalism? Hold on a minute. It doesn't. It's not about nationalism, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But if you care about the United States, if you actually are a patriot and you believe in American values and you believe in a constitution, we're all going to have to come together for a 28th Amendment to ban greed and influence, because elections must be publicly funded by individuals, human beings, American citizens, not artificial companies or artificial entities is the technical term, because we all know that corporations are not money and money is not speech. And it's really important to say, when people say that corporations are not people, we're not necessarily talking about regular companies. What we're talking about here is political companies. So the 527s and the 510s that they're called, and I don't think I have that diagram ready, but I'm going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to talk about the ultimate problem why our entire democracy is being hijacked, and it all comes down to greed. So when they say corporations are not people think Tesla, Walmart, Exxon, all regular corporations. Yeah, they're a big problem, no doubt about it. But what we're really talking about is the ability to establish a corporation, a political corporation that's only objective is to exploit and infiltrate elections. So these are political companies, which we all know are called super PACs. There are 527s. Super PACs are companies. That's the problem. It's not Exxon and Walmart as the ultimate problem. The problem is Citizens United gave allowed companies to spend unlimited amount of money in politics, but that allowed the creation of a special kind of company, which is known as a 527 and a super PAC. So we're going to be talking a lot about that in tonight's show. I'm going to have an awesome chart to show everybody to make sure that no matter whether you're MAGA or you're liberal or you're independent like myself, because I'm not associated with either party, or you're a libertarian or you're progressive, whatever the fuck you are, wherever you consider yourself, I consider myself an American, and I consider myself that it's us versus the people in power. So it needs to be a 28th Amendment to remove all the influences from our political system. People think it's impossible. People would have said the same thing about MAGA. MAGA giving access to someone, allowing someone to act with impunity like Trump, and allowing them to tear down our democracy, even though he's not necessarily the one doing it himself. There are the Heritage Foundation behind him. Of course, you have AIPAC, you have the tech billionaires, you have foreign governments. So he's just being used as a puppet. So it doesn't matter where you stand on the political spectrum. We all know that 28th Amendment needs to happen. I've done these polls, I've done the videos. I don't think I've ever had someone tell me that we shouldn't do a 28th Amendment, that they don't agree with it. Literally, not a single person, maybe we'll find the first one in the comments today, someone will say that I don't agree with the 28th Amendment. Now, I get people that say, I don't agree with the 29th Amendment. That is different. People, and that's the term limits amendments. There are people that say that we shouldn't have term limits. And I understand why they say that, because term limits on their own don't make that much difference. And matter of fact, they sometimes cause more harm than good. But in conjunction, when it's combined with eliminating money, then term limits make sense. And I'm not talking about people should only serve for 2 years and go home. No, there needs to be reasonable term limits so someone can't start in Congress or in the Senate when they're 25 and still be in the old folks' home of Congress when they're 90. That's what doesn't make sense. So we have a couple comments. Jazz 1970s, welcome those of you on Instagram. Stephen Miller needs to be stuffed back into his high school locker and never let back out. Did he even make it that far? Absolutely. There are so many names, and it's not name calling, it's being descriptive. You literally have a new breed of individuals that I'm going to call J-Nazis, J-Snazis, J-Yahtzees, whatever you want to call them. You never would have put those two terms together, but you have a new breed of people that are J-Yahtzees. Unbelievable. Gene Lloyd says, remove Citizens United as it follows Fox News to lie. You can't remove Citizens United. You can't overturn that because the Supreme Court has already established it. It's unlikely to ever get overturned. You have to go above the ruling and into the Constitution itself, because the Supreme Court has already addressed this and suggested that it would have to be done at the constitutional level, because Citizens United was just one of many rulings. You had Buckley versus Vallejo in 1976. You had Citizens United and Speech Now in 2010. And you actually had the doorway cracked open back in, I think it was 1836, to allow this, interpretation that people can be viewed as something other than human beings and other than individuals. So it's really effed up. We all know it. And that's the thing that I think we need to all rally around. All Americans need to rally around, because if you can't talk about a laundry list of issues, because everybody's going to disagree with various issues, and that's fine. You can have that disagreement. What you have to go down to is the fundamental level where everyone can understand our common enemy. So if you're a actual, sensible, reasonable American who actually cares about your own life, never mind about the entire country, then you have to remove the money, because we know it's all being infiltrated by money. Again, I'll talk about that this evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, possibly 7 p.m. Eastern if I change the lives to 7 p.m. So now let's get into the Greenland situation. So yesterday, and I think I'm going to provide some unique take on this, the Greenland situation. Let me know in the comments, why do you think we're taking over Greenland? We have a request. Ann Brown, do you want to join from Instagram? I don't take too many guests from Instagram. I'd like to take more, but if you'd like to join, you're welcome to come on. And we're going to talk mostly about Greenland and or the 28th Amendment, if that's something that we should be talking about. So they need to make podcast equipment more expensive. Oh boy, yeah. Good job, DJ. That's a good dig. I think there's something Russia wants from us. Absolutely. Osei. Okay. So we have Stephen Miller with this quote on Jake Tapper's show on 2 days ago. He said, Stephen Miller said, "We live in a world, in the real world, that is governed by strength, and that is governed by force, and that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world since the beginning of time." Stephen Miller. Who agrees with that? Because I'm going to tear it apart in just a second. So this sounds like, oh, well, he may have a point. This is how the real world works. Those are they? I don't think they are H-man's words. I don't know about that. So here's the retort to that. No, Stephen Miller, you little scum that he is. Since 1945, we live in a values-based, rules-based world. That real world is backed by strength. It is backed by force, and it is backed by power. It is not governed by power. It is not governed by force. It is backed by those things. That is the difference, because we live in a rules and values-based order since 1945. And this little shit thinks that he wants to go back into living a world where it's basically whoever has the most guns and the most power gets everything. That's not how this works since 1945. That's not the world order that we all have grown up in since FDR and Churchill established this world order, where with the United Nations Charter that says we have to respect countries' sovereignty. We do not go to wars over border disputes. We use negotiation and diplomacy to solve those things, and rules are good. Imagine playing in a sport that had no rules. That sport would not exist. And that's exactly what FDR set up after World War II with Churchill. They said they can't keep going on with whoever has more power continues to take more land and continues to dominate. It does not work. This is a ridiculous point of view. So we live in a value and rules-based world order. That is the real world. That is not governed by strength. It is backed by strength. That is backed by force. And it is governed and backed by power. That is the rules-based world order that we live in since the beginning of 1945. So let me ask everyone in the comments, do you think that we should change that? Now you have one administration that's abiding with what China wants and what Russia wants, to give them license, essentially, to do what they want. They want to each control their hemispheres. Russia wants to control Europe. China wants to control Southern Asia. The United States, of course, wants to control our hemisphere. And that's where we're going, to these three sort of powers just doing what they want in their neighborhoods. All right, so let's see. Do we have any major trollers that we need to ban in the comments? If there are, let me know. You guys do normally do a good job. If there's someone completely trolling and being a tool, then we get rid of them in the comments. Okay, now let's talk about Greenland. So you're hearing a lot of word about after we did Venezuela, now we're threatening to take Greenland again. This conversation is coming up again. Believe people when they tell you something. People always tell you and show you who they are. You just need to watch and listen. It's really simple. And when they tell you they want to take Greenland, it's not some sort of joke. It's not some sort of power play. They want to take Greenland. And whether it's by force, which they won't really need by force, but who do you think, what's the reason? I'm going to ask you, there's three major reasons, why the administration is thinking about taking Greenland. What are they? And of course, Denmark controls Greenland, and they are an ally, and they are in NATO, just like we are. So they're supposed to be an ally. So Lady Lightseeker, you say minerals, okay? Resources, Darren, resources and minerals. Sure, let's talk about that in just a second. Nuclear defense strategy, Jason, got it. Greenland is in NATO. Yep. See if anyone gets the most nefarious reason why someone in the administration is being convinced that we need Greenland. Is it just because of defense of the Arctic, and is it minerals? There's one other thing. There, Mimi's got it. There you go. So you might think, so let's talk about that. Greenland can vote, right, and decide if they want to be a part of the U.S. That's how it's supposed to work, right? If we respect democracy, which we're supposed to be the heartbeat of the world's democracy and try and promote democracy, not this administration, but of course, that's what we do. So Greenland, here's the strategy. Here's what's happening with Greenland almost certainly. We all know Greenland has tremendous amount of minerals and resources in the future as the ice continues to melt. So there's no doubt that anyone would want to control those resources. But remember, we're in NATO, Denmark's an ally. American companies would certainly, knowing their location to Greenland and the United States, would have access to those minerals. Would we have to purchase it? Licenses? Of course. There's no reason for us to take Greenland for minerals. That's silly. There's also the second reason would be to have more control of the Arctic, right? To have more control of the Arctic transportation lanes in the Arctic Ocean as the ice melts in the Arctic as well. That is true. But again, we're in NATO. Denmark, of course, is going to want us to protect that, and we would do so if we needed to. So there's no real need for us to go into Greenland to get control of our nuclear umbrella, if you want to call it that. There's really no need for that. You can make an argument that it has, of course, strategic value. It has a lot of geopolitical value, but that's not the reason that Trump is doing this. And the reason is Russia. And you know, some people roll their eyes, but hear me out. Russia is the one doing this. There is a major Russian influence campaign happening within the administration, and it's most likely happening through someone like Steve Witkoff or Boris Efferson or someone that's closely related to Trump that also has deep connections to former Soviet or current Soviet Russian oligarchs that have access to Putin. You might say, why would Putin be advancing the notion that the United States should take Greenland? That doesn't seem to go in Russia's best interest. Russia doesn't want the United States to take Greenland. That makes no sense. Of course it does. There's an influence campaign that's essentially propping up Trump to say, can you imagine if you're the president that takes Greenland and brings Greenland back to the United States, brings Greenland to the United States of America? You'll be the greatest president ever, Mr. Trump. You should take Greenland. You'll have control of all those resources. You'll have control of the Arctic, yada, yada, yada. This is playing to his ego. And whether it's Stephen Miller playing to his ego, Stephen Witkoff, or whoever it might be, I don't know who it is, but Russia is promoting that the United States goes after Greenland. And the reason is really simple. Because if we take Greenland, then NATO is done. That's right. As some people in the comment, it's the fall of NATO. And just like Darren A287 says, Putin then wins. If we take Greenland, NATO ceases to exist. And now Russia has carte blanche what it wants to do in taking back the former Soviet republics. NATO is done if we take Greenland. So that is why Russia doesn't necessarily, they don't want us to see us take Greenland, but if it gives them the opportunity to then control their hemisphere and their eastern part of Europe again, all day long they will make that deal. Russia is always seeking ways, clever ways as well, to divide Americans and to make America weaker so that they can control Eastern Europe. This is very simple. This is the strategy, and you can play on Trump's ego and narcissism and just idiocy, realizing that there are many Russian influences. I will name the people if people don't think that there are. Just go to Steve Witkoff. Steve Witkoff is the modern-day Ghislaine Maxwell's father. Ghislaine Maxwell's father from the E-Files. He think he perished, it was 1988 or 1992, maybe it was, falling off a boat. He was a notorious businessman throughout the world, making deals can't even say the country, between the UK, having to foment arms deals throughout the world. He was basically like a global arms agent throughout many countries. And that was Ghislaine Maxwell's father. Steve Witkoff is the new guy similar to that. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are making deals in Gaza for real estate deals. This is all public knowledge. This is all publicly easily found, what they want to rebuild Gaza, turn it into real estate between what Israel wants and what Witkoff proposes and Russia and so forth. There are so many deals between the Gulf monarchs, between Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, who am I missing? Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, what's happening in Gaza. Everything that happens between the United States and Russia, or most things, go through Steve Witkoff, because since the 1980s, he's had deep ties to Russian businessmen and oligarchs that have connections, obviously, between Putin, the oligarchs, Steve Witkoff. And Steve Witkoff is one of Trump's main grifting friends. He's basically the grifter of the world. Steve Witkoff and his son. If you look at World Liberty Financial, you go to the About Us page on World Liberty Financial, you'll see the Witkoffs and all the Trumps listed. That's essentially a digital bank. I could go on for hours about these things, but we're mostly talking about Greenland here. And of course, what's happening between Greenland and the United States. So I'll take a breath here to see if there's any guests that want to join. I don't see anybody on Instagram. Taz, good to see you again. Good afternoon. I'm going to have a short live today, just about another 10 or so minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. And again, we're talking about Greenland and the influence of Russia and this Greenland situation. So there's where we're at. I might switch gears to Venezuela, because we realize what's happening now is the Trump administration, through the Heritage Foundation, through pro-Israel AIPAC groups, through the tech billionaires, are basically giving up on the current world order and think that everything needs to be a transaction. Well, the United States wants to control its hemisphere. Well, we always have. We always have. So that's nothing new. So by taking Greenland, it doesn't really suit us. It doesn't do anything for us, because Denmark is already a member of NATO. We have access to Greenland if we need it. There's no really reason for us to take Greenland, other than if we take Greenland, it's basically telling China and Russia is we're going to divide the world up into three sectors, essentially, three major power sectors. You're going to allow China to take over the South China Sea and all those countries. Anything it wants to do, that's its neighborhood, and we're not going to interfere. We're just going to take care of our hemisphere, and then you're going to allow Russia to have control over Eastern Europe, and everybody's supposed to go on its merry way. This is not how things work. We're moving into a time, if the United States allows this rules-based world order that FDR and Churchill set up, we're moving into a new world where there's constant war. There is constant conflict. And I'm not talking about the relatively smaller conflicts that have been happening lately. We're moving into a new world where Russia controls Eastern Europe, China controls the Southeast China Sea and all that region. Israel's going to have more and more impact over the Middle East, certain aspects of the Middle East. Of course, you're going to have Saudi Arabia, the Qatar, and the UAE taking more control of that region, their area of that region. And then, of course, the United States is just going to be getting nothing, because we already control our hemisphere. And you're going to lose the rules-based world order, which means you won't need the U.S. Navy to patrol the world's oceans to ensure free trade, which is bad, people. The United States is the world's policeman. It is the responsibility. With the great power comes great responsibility. And it's important that we maintain that world order with the 700 bases that we have to ensure that there are rules and there are values that happen around the world. Dictators don't care about rules. They do not care about laws. Peace-loving nations and peace-loving people do care about rules, and they do care about these things. So it's really important to understand that it is not a burden that the United States Navy acts as the world's policeman. It is a privilege that we do this, because it ensures that the world stays calmer. Lester Diamond, we're going to have you the first guest. Since the live's going to be short, we're just going to do a short panel today. And we got Lester joining us. I think you've been here before.
Yes, I have. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? Where's your conversation headed?
I was gonna say I think Stephen Miller's trolling you.
Of course you. So you don't believe in listening to what people say. Did you listen to the conversation he had with Jake Tapper?
Yeah, I saw it on your program.
So you heard him slurring his words and he was on something. You think that was trolling?
So I think what Stephen Miller does, and I've seen him do this many times, is he'll go on CNN and he'll play a part that's unlikable, the bad guy, and then he'll go on Fox News and he'll be likable, more articulate, intelligent. And I think he's just trolling and playing a part. I think you could even see him working at CNN in the future.
Yeah, well, yeah. If of course a certain organization takes over CNN, then I think that could be true. But if you think, yes, he is the bad guy they put out there to test things. They throw out crazy things. Well, he probably put his wife up to putting the tweet on, was it Twitter or Truth Social, with Greenland with the American flag draped over it and saying soon. So it was Stephen Miller that probably told Katie Miller to post that, and then Miller goes on TV to sort of, push buttons.
He's trolling. He knows what he's doing.
Are you a fan of Stephen Miller? So you actually think this is a guy you respect?
No, I think nobody really does. I think, even I don't think he is a WM type person.
You don't think he's part of the Heritage Foundation? You don't think he's a Heritage Foundation agent?
He's a neocon.
Yeah, he's part of the AIPAC group. He's part of the white nationalist group. He's what I call a new evolution, a new breed of a Jewish Nazi.
Well, I mean, there could be something new brewing. I doubt it.
Well, you have the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 and Project Esther that are been working together up until it recently blew up a little bit. I don't know where it stands at the moment, but the pro-is groups and the WC nationalists have been working together. They've been strategizing together, basically to be anti-Palestinian, anti-Middle East, etc.
Well, one thing I saw too, is a little off topic, that I found interesting, is that Israel just recognized Somalia as a country, and it's looking like that's where all the Gaza Palestinian people are going to go. So that's kind of brewing up all the anti-Somalia stuff, which they brought on themselves, but. Honestly, watch, you're going to see Stephen Miller as a regular guest on CNN in the future. I guarantee it.
All right, we'll see if that happens. I doubt that under the current ownership and the way it is, it would definitely not make his way to CNN because he will destroy their viewership.
Well, look at Donna Brazile. She went to Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
She was anti-Trump. She came out and said they rigged the election, the primary. Hillary Clinton rigged the primary. She gets a job at Fox News. Adam Kissinger got a job at CNN.
Right.
It's easy money for him.
All right. Well, I don't want to get into that boring speculation. That is relatively boring speculation.
Well, he's rage baiting is what he's doing, and he got you going last night. So.
Oh, I don't think he's rage baiting. He's sending a message on behalf of Russia and on behalf of other people in the administration that want to see this happen. Are you suggesting that Trump doesn't want to take Greenland? Are you suggesting that?
I think he does. I think his.
There you go. So what are you talking about? So you got Stephen Miller advancing the agenda. So he's not trolling. You got him advancing the agenda, and you're even admitting that he wants to take Greenland. So
he's not going to take it by force.
You don't have to take it by force. All you have to do is send 20 special forces in and just say, "Hey, we're taking over." There's no military there. There's nothing there. There's 30,000 people. There's no force. No one's going to. Just like Stephen Miller's the only thing he's right about. We could just take a ship over there and say, we're taking control. And that's the end of NATO. There won't be a shot fired.
Well, I will say, on the far right, the Nick Fuentes and that, they don't really like Stephen Miller at all. They don't like the neocon. They don't like the Zionist. That's their number one enemy to them.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. All right, see you. All right, so Taz asked a question, what happens to Canada? It's a great question. I don't know if I can answer it. Taz says, TK, can you speak on what would happen with Canada when the world order collapses? Hard to speculate, but this is what most likely happens. The United States wants to control its hemisphere. Would Canada ever become a 51st state? No, probably not. That's far-fetched because there would be that would be just nuts. But Canada would have to become even more subordinate to the United States. The United States is an empire, whether it's a positive empire following the rules-based world order or it becomes an autocracy at some point, it's still going to be a very powerful force. And Canada at most likely has to subjugate itself even further to the United States. It, of course, won't go anywhere else. Canada can't move to the European Union. It would like to, of course, but just geographically and by its resources, the United States wouldn't allow it to happen. So I would guess that they would just have to subjugate themselves to whoever the person in power of the United States is at that point. It wouldn't be good for Canada. They would become a vassal state. They wouldn't become, obviously, the true state that they are now, independent sovereignty. It would be muddy. That would be my guess anyway. But it's hard to know. The American empire as a world power is not going anywhere. We have too many resources. Our geography prevents us from ever being attacked other than end weapons. There's just, even if the American democracy fails, it will be a long time to the United States will not become a major world power. You got to remember the advancing of China and Russia and other countries around the world. Those countries are in very dangerous neighborhoods that have thousands and thousands of years of history of fighting against each other based on religion, based on race, and based on everything else. China is in a very dangerous neighborhood. India doesn't like China. China doesn't like India. They all want to advance their claims. Russia and China, of course, will be enemies forever. This is the fact of geography that has an impact on things. So people think that the United States dollar is going away and the empire is going to fail. Well, if it does fail, it's going to take a very, very long time before the United States is not a major power in the world. This doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long, long time before something like that happens. Helen, you're going to be up next. I'm going to just take one or two more people. I'm going to keep this live short today. Remember, please hit the follow button on the top left-hand corner of the screen. Please follow. Again, my shows are going to be at 1 p.m. each day and also either at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Helen, are you there? All right, I'm going to mute you, Helen. Seems like you're busy doing something. We got Butterfly here. Let's try and keep it on topic, mostly about Greenland and imperialism, that the United States is abandoning the current world order that's based on values and based on rules. It, of course, is going to what Stephen Miller is trying to promote, that we live in a world based on governed by strength, that is governed by force, and that is governed by power. No, we live in a rules-based world order that is governed by values, that is backed by strength, that is backed by force. What's up, Freddie? You here?
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the show. I think it's your first time here.
Yes, it is. I just the other day I was thinking about this situation, and I know the history of World War I and World War II. It was competing monarchies that the free world got drawn into with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, which kicked off World War One. World War II was just a continuation of the First World War, but these were dynasties at war with one another, and I can't help but think, especially when the topic of Greenland and the resources for advanced tech that is inside the minerals for Greenland, that we've traded monarchies for billionaires. That the ambition of billionaires is what's putting us in this pre 1945 sort of mindset. And if you look at Russia, after the fall of the Soviet Union, fascism pulled into Russia via the mafia. And you can't open a business in Russia without Vladimir Putin's permission. He's turned the country into this pseudo monarchist type government. And Donald Trump is just simply trying to emulate that. And you're sort of watching them try to reestablish an old world order that is just it is like you said counter to the rules established in the UN Charter, in the World Bank, so on and so forth, and throwing out the rule book.
Yep.
And it's just bizarre to watch. It's troubling to watch. I know the NATO allies have all signed a joint statement saying that they will do what they have to protect the sovereignty of Greenland. And
That's music to Russia's ears, isn't it?
absolutely, and because that's the dissolution of NATO. And what's so irritating about the whole thing is just how pathetic Russia is, and that the United States would kowtow to this four-tier level pissant government. You know, Russia's the second strongest military in Ukraine. You know,
Right.
everybody feared, you know, during the Cold War, I'm old enough to remember it, and I'm sure you are too. Everybody feared the 8-foot Russian. You know, that's what everybody feared going to war with. And you realize that they're not as strong as the myth of who they were was. You know, they have no solid NCO corps. Everybody's an officer. You know, when Ukraine was kicking off, they talked about how many upper echelon officers. Well, they just flooded with officers. You know,
Right.
there's no good NCO backbone inside of the military, whereas Ukraine had trained with the United States military and had developed a strong non-commissioned officer corps, and that's why they've been able to hold them off as well as they have. But yeah, I'm definitely concerned and watching this with growing trepidation.
Yeah, like you said, this little pissant, giant pissant country of Russia that everybody fears is literally has no economic power whatsoever. I mean, they're just smaller economy than the size of New York. It's just ridiculous. But it just goes to show that how easily someone only stands literally transactions. If I do this, I get that. This is the only way, because Trump doesn't understand. He doesn't even understand what a value is. He doesn't understand what a principle is. He doesn't understand character. And I don't mean that as like name calling. He literally doesn't understand the concept of values, the concept of integrity, the concept of trust. He only understands of what I can get through a transaction. He only views the world through a very simple lens, like trading baseball cards as a second grader. If I give you this card, I want a better card in return. That's the only way he thinks about everything. So it shows that other governments can manipulate him based on that same thing. Well, if you take Greenland, then that's great for you guys, and then we can do this, right? I mean, this is the deal making, because he doesn't have values. He doesn't have principles. He never understood the rules-based world order. That's why he cheated his contractors in Atlantic City and didn't pay people. It's not about an agreement that he makes. It's just about how much can I get and how much can I get away with. That's all it's about.
Right, and the ironic thing too is if Donald Trump had been born in a trailer park, he'd have been in prison a long time ago.
Yeah.
But generational wealth insulated him from any type of consequences that any normal human being would ever be a party to.
Right. He needed to get punched in the face a lot more when he was in 4th grade.
Oh yeah.
Well,
it would have done him some good.
Absolutely.
The cult of personality that he's established is just mind numbing, and yet even that you're watching fall apart in such a dramatic rate. When you talk about the Midwestern farmers, when you talk about, you know, his power base that put him in office and swore fealty to him, who are now starving. The price of beef is astronomical. Soy farmers can't sell their crop. He's destroyed relations in the United States.
That's what nationalism does, right? You have cult of personalities in Russia, in China, in India, in Israel, in the United States. The entire world is now being run by these almost fascist-inspired dictators. Like most of the power centers of the world have people that are very similar mindsets. It's all about power and transactions. That's how they're all thinking about things right now. So anyway, I appreciate you coming up.
Too, as you watch figures like Madeleine Albright or Condoleezza Rice or Angela Merkel, all these women, right, would tower over Vladimir Putin, and he was terrified of them because they actually held power. And yeah, it is a strange world that we find ourselves in.
Yep.
But thank you for your time.
I appreciate you having come up. I'm just going to be on the live short, so I'm going to shut her down for now, and I'll be back this evening. But thanks for having you here. Thanks for being here. See you, Freddie. All right. Thanks, everyone. I was just going to be a short live. I have to go and do some things. I'll be back tonight around 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern time. So thanks for joining. Remember to please like and please repost. If you want to restore America, have any chance to bring back representation for the people, by the people, and eliminate what Freddie was just talking about, all the influence from billionaires. If you want to eliminate the influence from billionaires, religious radicals, and foreign governments, there has to be this. There has to be a 28th and a 29th Amendment. People will think it's impossible. It's not. It takes 50 million people to make it happen. It is a big, ambitious goal, but I challenge anyone that this is the only way we have any chance to restore America back to its place where we're supposed to be a government for the people, by the people, not for the oil companies, by the oil companies, for the foreign governments, by the foreign governments, for the tech billionaires, by the tech billionaires, or the religious extremists, by the religious extremists, because we are a democratic republic, but we're not functioning as one. We're functioning as an oligarchy or as a corporatocracy or a plutocracy. We are certainly not operating as a functional democracy. I have a couple of guests that wanted to join in. I can't take you right now because the live is over for today, or not today, but I'll be back this evening. Thanks everybody for joining, and I will see you a little bit later. We'll see what happens in the news today, and we'll continue to march along to figure out ways to solve these problems in America. If they're solvable, I do believe they are solvable, but not for much longer. So thanks for joining. I'll leave you quickly with a Steve Jobs quote that's really inspiring. So let's listen to Steve Jobs.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again.
I think that's what we all need to remember, is that we need to poke things, right? The United States population has made dramatic changes to our lives in the past. The civil rights movement, the voting rights movement, the Civil War, World War I, World War II. We all need to wake up, take our fucking heads out of our asses, take our heads out of the sands, and stop arguing with each other about issues, and realize that we are under attack by the wealthy and the powerful, by the foreign governments, and that it has to be an us versus them mentality. There is a common enemy to all liberals and to all MAGA and everyone in between. There is a common enemy, and it's not culture wars. It's literally the billionaires, the religious radicals, the Heritage Foundation, foreign governments that are all stealing our democracy. There is a common enemy. We all need to realize that. We need to start moving together, but it's going to take a while. That's why I'm sitting here on these lives and with my videos, is trying to grow support for something really simple in terms of everyone can agree upon, because this changes our life. And when I say this, I mean the 20th Amendment. Thanks for joining. I'll see you everybody, I hope, this evening, and I'll see you then. Good.